Hi, I'm Scott. I'm a Quiet Place fan.
Hi, I'm Senthil, and I'm a Bird Box fan.
So the two of us have decided, since we disagree, we're going to start watching as many horror movies as we can and come up with a new way of rate them. Come join us.
They said they would be the foundation on which a new nation would be built.
From every mountain, let freedom ring. New God in town, and his name, Psycho Gorman. It was nice meeting you.
It would be nicer if you were dead.
Hey, Synthel, it's good to see you again this week.
Good to see
And
you.
I'm really excited by the two movies that we're actually talking about because one of them I absolutely loved. The other one I'm kind of on the bench on. But before we started recording, you had said, let's go with what you wanted to talk about first. And I said, let's go with Wrong Turn to start off. And so what I'm going to say about Wrong Turn is I actually happen to be a fan of the 2008 Wrong Turn. Anything that has cannibals in it, man, like Alive, I can dig that. And so when you said, hey, let's throw this one into the bin and watch it, I was actually looking forward to it. I thought it was a little early to start on doing it again. There were 6 other Wrong Turns that came out. And this one I thought was going to be basically they were going to redo 2008. Turns out not that way at all. And it became really political to me. It almost felt as if, and when I was looking through what you had sent to me on your review, you felt the same way. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was disappointed because it was nothing like the 2002 version of Wrong Turn. And when I first saw the trailer, they kind of hint that it occurs in the same world, and if it's not a direct sequel, it's an indirect sequel. But it was so milquetoast, and I was terribly disappointed in the villains. I thought that they definitely politicized the story way too much, and so it has some good moments in it, and in terms of classic horror. It has some really good blood and guts, but the blood and guts and the violence requires the characters to make bad decisions, and the movie wouldn't have worked without that.
So one of the things that I'm with you. I mean, honestly, we're going to go look for an old Civil War fort site out in the middle of the Appalachian Trail. We have no idea where we're going. I mean, it was the perfect setup for you got to do everything wrong. I will say there were certain moments in the film that were startling. And I don't want to ruin 2 of them, but one of them takes place on an altar. It was very Negan, but you get to see the whole thing. And then the way that they condemned those who did not believe, I thought was pretty damn brutal too, Senthil. So there was those little twists to it. Not what I'm going to say about Wrong Turn, and the reason I will say that, to me, Wrong Turn it's kind of in that middle of Quiet Place and Bird Box for me. It's not quite as good as Quiet Place. It's not as bad as Bird Box. It's right there in the middle. Is the damn ending, man. What was your take on that ending?
Completely out of left field, and I like the ending. Despite my disappointment with some other parts of the movie, I watched all the way through the trailer. I mean, through not the trailers, the closing credits, because I didn't expect any of those ending scenes to occur, and they were great. I loved it.
So Tracy and I were watching it, and both of us are sitting there going, I can't believe this is happening. And you're waiting, right? And you're waiting. Yeah. And it was the most intense part of that movie was the last 7 minutes of that trailer. So what I will say, Cynthia, is with our scoring here, I actually gave the plot a 3. And the reason is there were parts of it that were a little unnerving. Characters a 2, villain 1, fear factor 1, blood and guts a 1, pacing 0, sound 2, comedy 0, sex sells 1, and there was to be clear, there was no sex. It was just implied.
Yeah.
But that implied sex actually was important to the movie.
Right.
And then its watchability, I gave it a 1. I mean, I wouldn't deny I watched it, and I'd actually tell people fast forward to the credits scene or watch it on YouTube. What was your thoughts?
When I had very similar thoughts to what you did. I gave a lower score for the plot because it dragged and it meandered and it introduced politics into a horror movie. If you do successfully, like in the Purge series, it works. But the politics weren't central to the plot. They
Right.
were a bolt-on to almost humanize the villains without going too much further into that. The characters, I detested the characters because they were all from the beginning. The scene in the bar where she's talking back to the locals. Wow, I don't know what else to say about that other than when you all see it, you will definitely think, what the holy heck is she doing? This is going to turn out bad. There's no other way. That's a foreshadowing.
Yeah.
This is going to turn out bad. So I hated the characters. The villains were really disappointing because it wasn't until the end of the movie that the villains really started to step up. The fear factor, there was no fear inducing moment for me. Blood and guts, I almost felt like the blood and guts were an afterthought. So the two scenes you're talking about to me were, holy moly, we are a horror movie. We better throw some shock factor in. And
I can see where you're coming. Yeah.
It was kind of out of place. I mean, there's some moments early on that traditional horror, but those two particular shock factors I thought didn't really fit into the story. So I thought they did distract a bit. The pacing, I had to fast forward some of the elements of it because I got irritated. It wasn't very tight. Sound didn't do much for me. There's no particular horror movie soundtrack that I would want to talk about. The only comedy was unintentional in it. Implied sex, not a whole lot going for it from that perspective. Watchability, it's pretty low, but I would say the same thing to others that you did, which is fast forward. Be ready to fast forward. Make sure you watch the credits. And there are some good moments from a traditional horror perspective.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, so let's move on to what I enjoyed the hell out of it. Psycho Goreman, man. Now, Synthel, I was not expecting this movie to be this way because when I saw the trailer for it and I saw the movie poster for it, I went, here is going to be a college-made film that is going to blow. No, I loved every minute of this movie. I'm sorry. It was one of the I thought it was great. It was great. Your thoughts?
It totally caught me off guard because I had the same expectation that this was going to be some extremely low budget C grade schlock fest. The title alone, but I was completely surprised because the production quality was much higher than I expected. The gore factor was higher quality than I expected.
Yeah.
The characters were nothing like traditional horror movie characters. I actually did, after I watched this, I went and looked up the director and writer was the same because I wanted to find out what else he did. And because I would watch it totally. It's very unique.
Yeah, it was so. One of the things, and I know you and I have talked about this before, neither of us are fans of snotty little bratty kids in a movie. And she is over the top, but it worked so well in this movie. I loved her attitude.
I did too, because she played it to the hilt.
Yes.
There is no remorse in this character to the very bitter end. You get exactly what you see, and that's the beauty of the unusual nature of this plot. It's not apologetic in any way, shape, or form.
No, and the ending is not what you think it's going to be. I was laughing at the ending because you're supposed to laugh at it, right? But it was so comical. And you went, huh? That's how this is going to end? I loved it.
What just happened?
Yeah.
Really? That's how you're going to go? But which I give a lot of credit to the writer and director because That is not the direction that typically you would see in any of this type of movie.
Yeah.
He wrote it out to the hilt and is unapologetic, as I mentioned. So very unique movie, much better than I thought. It's unfortunate that this happened during the pandemic, because I think this could have been a cult classic, like very few achieve in this area.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed Bloodfest, which we rated. And I really think if this had had the opportunity to go out to the theater, if there would have been a following. Personally, I think it'll be a cult classic over time. I really do.
I do too. Yeah, word of mouth would have definitely pushed it.
Yep.
It is definitely harder to get word of mouth marketing for your movie, it seems, in the pandemic era for whatever reason. You think social media would enhance it, but I haven't seen this movie talked about much through social media or online sources that I typically follow for horror movies. So it clearly went under the radar, which is unfortunate, but this will definitely be a cult classic.
So Synthel, in actually talking about that, and I know that we're kind of running out of time before we go to scores, but I did want to ask you a question on this. I've been thinking about it a lot. During the pandemic, we have seen very few big number productions from the big houses, right? But what we have seen are a lot of what I would call B and C class movies in order to fill space on subscription services, Netflix, Prime. I really call these, and I don't want to degrade anybody, because making a movie is a lot of work. So even a bad movie, I look at it and say, there was a lot of energy and time put in it. Are you starting to feel, I think that this Psycho Goreman, to me, coming out onto a streaming service, not being able to hit the theaters, I think opens up the door for a higher grade movie now that never hits the screen and goes directly to this. I'm not talking to Stranger Things where they have a multi-million-dollar production. I'm talking about movies like this where somebody's pulling out of their back pocket and dropping, $250,000, $300,000 to do.
Yeah, I agree. Bloodfest and Psycho Goreman are both in the same category. I don't know if they would have gotten even the attention they did without significant marketing effort and push from the studios, which wouldn't have happened because these are small budget movies.
Yeah.
Sure, they could have potentially taken off virally, but I think this definitely opens the door for the reasons that we talked about. I remember reading about some of the primetime networks reaching and pulling streaming shows and movies into primetime because they had no content. And so this produces a great opportunity for low budget and talented filmmakers like for Bloodfest and Psycho Goreman to have content show up on major streaming services and get attention on major streaming services. So I think it's definitely changed the landscape.
Well, I agree 100%. So I'm going to tell you that PJ Goreman, Psycho Goreman, was definitely A Quiet Place to me. It was really well done. I thought the plot was phenomenally done. It was something I hadn't seen done before. I thought the characters were, whoever played that demon, spot on. It was phenomenal. The villain, I don't even know how you can call it. You have to watch the movie. I don't know if there were really any villains involved.
There was, but I think it was a little girl.
yeah, I would agree. Who you're not thinking should be it.
Yeah.
Fear factor. There was no fear factor to it.
No.
This really, truly was comedy horror. There was tons of bloods and guts.
Yeah.
And it was actually funny the way they did it. I love the pacing. I could have spent another hour with them. I thought the sound was great. The comedy was spot on. So I rated this very high. It's a must watch in my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. And what's fascinating about this is we both agree that we love this movie and it hit it out of the park in every one of these categories. But I call it a Bird Box, you call it A Quiet Place.
Right. So until next week, Synthel?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll see you then.
Looking
Bye.
forward to it. Bye.